Pac-Man World vs. Re-Pac. Did they ruin it? With the recent announcement of Pac-Man World 2 Repac and my video about the original Pac-Man World 2, I decided it might be time to go back and play the game series from the start and see what I'm missing out on and see how well the original game holds up and compare it to its remake. So let's jump into the world of Pac-Man World. Pac-Man World is a platforming game released for the PS1, developed and published by Namco Home Tech. It originally started development as a game called Pac-Man Ghost Zone that was intended to be a new, grittier Pac-Man game. There was some footage of it at E3 1997, and just based on what I see, I can see why they fired most of the crew and restarted the game development from scratch. The crew, instead of trying to reinvent Pac-Man completely, they decided to push the IP forward in a new direction, but keep the same feel of what we know and love about Pac-Man. We then got the Pac-Man World we know that was shown at E3 1998 and was released in 1999 for the PlayStation 1. And we got this wild commercial for it starring Mr. T and Vern Troyer.
Morning, itty bitty. Just what I need. Another little bald guy.
Pac-Man's moving up to a whole new world.
The Japanese version is a lot tamer, but does have a quick cameo of Billy Mitchell. Also, before we got the Re-Pac remake, we got a remake for the Game Boy Advance developed by Full Fat in 2004, but I didn't touch this one and only played the PS1 version and then the Re-Pac version for PC. So let's hop into the PS1 version of this game and see how it holds up. Booting up the game greets us with this terrifying cutscene of all Pac-Man's friends getting kidnapped on the lead up to Pac-Man's birthday. I found the cutscene terrifying due to the low quality 3D render of everything, especially this cat, but also because of the ways the characters are kidnapped. Mainly Miss Pac-Man. It turns into a horror movie like Evil Dead or Black Christmas, where we get a POV of breaking into her home and kidnapping her. Then Pac-Man shows up distressed, and we jump into the main menu. After starting a new game, we get another cutscene that shows Pac-Man seeing a flyer that says come meet Pac-Man in person at Ghost Island. So Pac-Man pulls up to Ghost Island, where all the ghosts are being led by a Temu version of Pac-Man, and now it's up to Pac-Man to navigate Ghost Island and crash the party. When Pac-Man pulls up to the island, it looks like a scary, spooky island, but then going into the first level, it's actually a pretty nice little beach area where we get to learn the controls and gameplay mechanics. So coming from only playing Pac-Man World 2, I can see how they took these controls and gameplay from the first game and expanded them into the sequel. We start off with a maze similar to the OG Pac-Man, where you can collect some dots and power pellets that turn all the ghosts blue so you can eat them. In this game, you can also use the dots to chuck at enemies. Then we are shown the jump and the butt bounce, which can give yourself a higher jump or be used to stomp objects and enemies. You then get the swimming controls that have you press X to swim up or triangle to swim down. We collect fruits along the way, which can be used to open doors and can also be found in chests. There are a lot of doors to open up in this game that contain switches to progress the level or to unlock secret areas and collectibles. We get the Metal Pac-Man ability that gives Pac-Man immunity to attacks from enemies and obstacles, but also allows Pac-Man to walk underwater. We get the Rev Roll that has Pac-Man charge up a sprint to get up steep terrain, but it can also be used to interact with these platforms that move across the map. The game uses a checkpoint system that after Pac-Man uses up all of his health will spawn back at and will lose a life. If you lose all the lives, you get sent back to the main menu, where you can load back the most recent save file. But if you use all these gameplay mechanics successfully, you can complete the level and get to the slot machine that you can play to increase your total score for the level. After you beat the first level, you're booted to the hub world on Ghost Island, where you have 3 of 6 worlds unlocked. You need to progress through all the levels of a world to unlock the others. I decided to play them in order of how they were presented and jumped into the second level, the Pirate World. I got to use all the things I learned in the tutorial level now in the second level, and I was having a lot of fun. They really took the theme of the level and added interesting enemies and challenges that really made the world feel unique. The Pirate World had pirate skeletons, parrots with bombs and explosive barrels as enemies, all while cannons and muskets were being shot at you to dodge. There were some puzzles that sometimes had you backtrack a lot, which sometimes they made it easy and gave you a way back, but some of it felt a little too long. One thing they didn't show in the tutorial was that you can collect each individual letter of Pac-Man to unlock a bonus level, and sometimes I didn't collect all the letters. But I wish I did go back to collect these extra objects, because every character we saw kidnapped in the opening cutscene has to be saved in order to unlock the final boss of the game. This led me to go back later on and collect the keys and rescue them. Even though I completed all the levels before, I just sometimes would get bored with backtracking a bunch and didn't complete all the puzzles. Just like in Pac-Man World too, you can find bonus maze levels that play like the original Pac-Man game. And also, you can just play the original game from the main menu. But back to the main game. After completing the first 3 levels, you then unlock the boss level for the world. For the pirate world, it's an airship called the HMS Windbag. You start the level running from the ship as it shoots its cannons at you. Then, when it's time to fight back, you use the butt bounce ability to spring these targets up that bounce the cannonballs back at the ship, which defeat the ship, and it's time to enter the next world. The next world is a jungle temple area, and on the first level, you're greeted with this little guy who looks so much like Caveman SpongeBob. They add a bunch of new hazards and enemies like lava, spiders, tornadoes, booby traps, and also the darkness. There's some areas where you just can't see shit, and it's hard to navigate. The game felt like it was getting a little harder at this point. The platforming was getting a little challenging, and the part with these minecarts was starting to piss me off. There's a lot of steep inclines in this level too, that you think Pac-Man would just roll down, but he falls down it so dramatically. This world is the only one to feature 3 levels, while all the other ones have 4. And the final boss of this one is a fight with Anubis Rex, and it starts off so cool. The screen is a first-person view of this mummy chasing you down while you gotta dodge spikes coming from the ground. And the spikes are hard to dodge, but the level is so cool. After escaping the mummy, you now fight this giant temple. You rev roll on the platforms to open up the temple's doors/hands that reveal its heart that you can rev roll into to deal damage. And every time you deal damage, the temple uses another attack on you. And by the end of it, there's so much shit flying on the screen, it makes it so challenging. But after defeating Anubis Rex, it's onto the space world. These levels feature aliens, lasers, and shields. I didn't have as much trouble with these levels as I did the temple levels, but the boss fight was a little challenging, but still lots of fun. The gameplay turns into one of Namco's other properties, Galaxian. This has Pac-Man take control of a spaceship equipped with a blaster to take down aliens before getting to King Galaxian. You shoot out one of its eyes and then dodge a bunch of attacks before it moves in again to take down another eye. But each time you do, more attacks are thrown at you. It pretty much turns into a bullet hell, and if you die, you have to restart from the start of the boss fight. This took me a few tries, but after dodging all the attacks, I took out the 4 eyes and moved on to this goofy ass clown world. This world is just all circus clown themed, with merry-go-rounds, Ferris wheels, and clowns shooting fire at you. This area had such a strange boss fight at the end, but was a cool switch up. You just race a bunch of clowns and some bumper carts. You can get ripping pretty fast in these bumper carts, and it was fun drifting around and bumping the clowns off the edge. I sped my way into first place and completed the world and moved to the factory world. This level has all sorts of machinery attacking you and blowing fire at you, as well as these magnetic platforms that attack you but can also be used to get to higher areas. This level also featured a lot of swimming, which made me realize that swimming is kind of a pain. It has you mash the X and triangle button a lot and was starting to get annoying. Near the end of the second level in this world, there was a switch you hit to destroy the factory, and it rains down these gears falling from everywhere, and this part was such a piss off. There was so much shit falling down to dodge, and the sounds were just too much. This world ends off with a boss fight against a robot that has you hit all these switches that deal damage to you, so you gotta be equipped with the Metal Pac-Man power-up. But there are magnets above that will sweep up Metal Pac-Man, so you gotta dodge those, and this level goes on for too long. You just do the same thing over and over again. Some variety would have been nicer on this one, or even if it was a little shorter. Now we get into the final world of the game, the Spooky Graveyard. This one features a lot of ghouls and ghosts, although every level before also featured ghosts, since they're Pac-Man's natural enemy. This level has some fun platforming that has coffins and thunderclouds that disappear and makes things a little bit more challenging and dangerous. The last level had me confused for a moment because it requires a lot of backtracking to open up doors, but after I completed it, it was time for the final boss fight. Pac-Man rolls up and crashes the party celebrating the knockoff Pac-Man, toc-man, whose name is the Famicom home console release of Namco games called Namtoc, but backwards. After toc-man gets pissed off for ruining his party, he starts throwing out fireball attacks and butt bounces. You attack back by throwing pack dots at him. If you get damaged in this level, all the homies you saved along the way throw down health for you. After a while, toc-man gets sucked into the middle of the map, where you jump on a few platforms to butt bounce on him. Then he starts doing his own rev roll around the map that you dodge, which ends with him crashing and gives you the opportunity to rev roll into him until he's defeated. This overall was a pretty fun boss fight, and it ends with a cutscene where a ghost emerges from the broken toc-man, and he's crying. He's like, it's unfair, no one likes a ghost, and it seems like he was just trying to be Pac-Man so that he would fit in and people would like him. And the absolute psychopath Pac-Man pops a power dot and kills him, and the game ends. I was stunned at this ending. Pac-Man's a little crazy for that one. This game, I say overall, is pretty good. It did remind me of games like Crash Bandicoot, but I think it strayed away from just being a clone of it, with elements from the original Pac-Man with some pretty decent platforming and combat thrown in there. I think some areas were a little too challenging, were amplified due to the game being a bit older, but I think the controls were overall pretty good. I've definitely played newer games with more terrible controls. I really do love the graphics of older 3D games like this, and I thought all the levels were beautiful. Some of that might have to do to nostalgia and just my personal interest in low poly Y2K graphics, but I also think the themes around the level designs were crafted well too. I can only hope that Repac keeps that same level of quality, which we'll hop into now. Pac-Man World Re-Pac is a remake of the game I just talked about before, if you were paying attention. It was released on August 26, 2022 for all modern, at the time, consoles and PC, which is what I played it on. It was developed by Now Production using the Unity engine. It's a full remake with new graphics as well as gameplay changes that we will now take a look at. The game opens up with a cutscene that is less terrifying than the old one, that has all the homies setting up for Pac-Man's birthday, but some of these characters are different from the original. We get the OG Ghost Crew showing up to kidnap Pac-Man, but they get confused on why there's so many people that look like Pac-Man and just kidnap them all in different ways. The ways are a little more charming and goofy, and we know a little more of what's going on compared to the horror of the original cutscene. Also, none of the characters have actual voice lines in the game, they just have subtitles with random little noises played. Pac-Man shows up to see his party is all ransacked and all his homies are gone, and a flyer for a party on Ghost Island falls down from the sky, and now we can start a new game. Like the other game, it starts another cutscene showing how pissed off toc-man is for the ghost grabbing the wrong Pac-Man, and now Pac-Man shows up to Ghost Island to save them, and then we jump into the first level. So first off, I think the updated graphics look very clean and very good, but I still have a bias for that old school look and charm. The first area looks pretty much the same. We do have a different camera angle, and I jumped down to grab the power pellet to fight off the ghost and was greeted with a huge new difference. Pac-Man turns giant when eating the power pellet, not only allowing for him to eat ghosts, but also to destroy parts of the environment. The butt bounce and jump felt super similar, and we get the addition of coins to be used in the new and improved slot machine at the end of the level. We then get the original attack of throwing the dots and some improved swimming controls. You no longer have to mash the buttons while swimming underwater, it's a lot better now. We collect the fruit to open doors, butt bounce on switches and trampolines, rev roll up steep terrain, and to also move platforms. But one huge new thing is the ability to float in the air for a bit, which would have saved my ass in the original game quite a few times from falling off a ledge. We get the metal Pac-Man that will actually respawn the ability, while in the other game it was just a one-time use. The checkpoints work the same, and ending the level requires you now to destroy a statue of toc-man to end it off. When we get back into the hub world, we see it's laid out a lot differently. The starting pirate world is in the middle, while the other two worlds are on the left and right, rather than just being a linear path to each one. The pirate area also includes some areas where you can view cutscenes as well as play mazes that you unlock. I then hopped into completing the pirate levels, and the two levels felt pretty much the same as the original, but a lot smoother to play. All of the quality of life improvements made the game more enjoyable while still being challenging. The first big change was the fight with Windbag, which started like the other game, but then after we get a cutscene of toc-man upgrading the airship. I feel like adding this little scene adds a little more depth to the game and shows us who the main bad guy is, because in the old game, toc-man appears at the beginning and at the end, and we don't see him at all really. Then the fight with Windbag starts off easier with less targets to trigger, and then gets a bump up in difficulty adding some more targets, which makes the boss battle feel a little bit more involved. I really enjoy all the switch ups so far. Also this time I went back and collected all the collectibles and rescued all the friends right away so I didn't have to backtrack like before. I also did all the bonus levels you get when collecting the letters in Pac-Man. I then went over to the Jungle Temple world and we were greeted with a higher quality version of the caveman SpongeBob. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that there's some enemies that can only be defeated as Metal Pac-Man. But the Jungle Temple felt super similar. When you get to the Anubis Rex fight, it still starts off with a first person mummy chasing you, and the spikes in the ground are so much easier to dodge now. But this whole part doesn't look as cool as it did in the first game. I feel like it lost a little style. The fight with Anubis Rex has cleaned up a lot too. toc-man makes his appearance, and then the platforms to Rev Dash are all connected at first. And as Anubis takes damage, the stage starts to break down and it ramps up the challenge. But it doesn't get as hectic as it did in the first version. After that, I headed over to the space world, where there weren't any big changes until the fight with King Galaxian. You get a power-up that can shoot in 3 directions, and in between taking down Galaxian's eyes, you shoot down a giant weapon instead of just trying to survive the bullet hell. After I beat him, this unlocks the next 2 worlds, and I head straight to the circus one. Again, not too many changes to the levels themselves, up until the Clown Prix. The racing is is done through a first-person perspective with being able to drift and boost, but it honestly didn't feel as fun as the first one. It felt a lot simpler and easy to control, which made it a little boring. I then went over to the factory level, which had more changes I noticed compared to the previous levels. One of them being it doesn't rain down gears on your head after hitting that switch. Another is the boss fight with the robot being completely different. Instead of just going in circles hitting the switches, you dodge attacks on a series of conveyor belts until you get a metal Pac-Man upgrade that allows you to walk across these hot beams and attack the robot. This felt a little more involved than the other one, making it a lot more fun. And now it's off to the final world, the graveyard. These levels were pretty much the same as the original, and the big final boss was the one that changed the most. We get a quick cutscene of Pac-Man interrupting toc-man's presence, and it jumps into the battle. The battleground has skeletons that spawn all around instead of ghosts that drop you pellets to use to shoot toc-man while dodging his attacks. And like before, you get health from all your friends, but the process is super annoying. In the previous game, they would just quickly pop up and not disturb the gameplay, but in this, it stops the gameplay entirely with a cutscene. Toc-man will then get a metal power-up, and after dodging his attacks, will give you a chance to grab a power-up yourself and attack back. After depleting his life bar, toc-man will use a power pellet to turn into a giant, in which you attack his feet to knock him down to butt bounce on him. After doing this 3 times, he's finally defeated. Not actually though. He gets back up and chucks Pac-Man into a cake where he finds a power pellet and goes big mode, and after mashing A bit, we'll finally defeat him. We then get a cutscene of the ghost controlling toc-man finally emerging, and he's all sad saying why doesn't anyone root for the ghost, and Pac-Man doesn't kill him with no remorse like last time. He shakes his hand with the ghost and forgives them. Pac-Man's a real one for that one. We then see all of our friends we rescued enjoying Pac-Man's birthday with the company of the ghost there. A lot more of a happier ending than the previous. The credits roll, in which you can move around the maze and collect the letters for thank you for playing, and that's it for Pac-Man World Re-Pac. Now, I thought this game was a really well-made remake. I saw on Wikipedia that it was criticized for not innovating enough, but I thought it was done perfectly. It added so many quality of life improvements that made the game easier to play while still keeping it challenging. Everything felt more polished and the graphics looked really good. I had a lot of fun playing both of these games back to back and highly suggest even playing the original one, as it still holds up as a great platforming game. Now I'm going to sit here and wait until September 25th when the second game gets its remake, and I'll make a video about that then. And if you're watching this from the future, go check that out, and if not, go check out my other videos. Peace.